Moments away from the opening bell on this, the first trading day of 2020. Scott Martin, Susan Lee, both helping me cover this momentous event. Scott, to you first. A terrific rally late last year. Do you see it holding on way into 2020?
I do. I think the rally gets a little bit, to use the word, Stuart, tougher, let's say, in 2020, just because I think there's some external factors, certainly geopolitically, as we've seen just in the last couple of weeks, but also coming up to that little tiny event in November here with the presidential election. So I do believe the market goes up this year. I think we do have some nice big rallies, but I expect some big pullbacks, too, as some of that presidential election fear play out.
What goes up does eventually come down at least a little, and that election is a problem. But what do you know?
Fourth best decade in the century, and China, by the way, is now injecting liquidity and money into its own economy to try to liquidate and get it going again. That's positive from a global stance. If China, the second largest economy in the world, is doing that, you can imagine that that money flows across its borders. Yeah,
it chucked $115 billion right into the economy right there. You can hear them clapping and cheering. Bang, it is 9:30 and trading in 2020 has now begun. So let's have a look where we are. Right from the get-go, we're up 118 points. That's what I've got at the moment. When all of those stocks open, we'll bring them to you. Show me the S&P, please. I believe that is also guaranteed that's on the upside. Dow's up 114. The S&P, what do we got for that, please? Can we see? Yeah, we're up about a half percentage point. That's a rally. Look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ had a terrific year last year. I think it was up about 34%.
Yes.
And it's now above 9,000. Whether that's a new mark, I'm not sure, but 9,000 on the NASDAQ is an extraordinary headline. All-time high for Apple, you're looking at it, 295.76 as we speak, up a couple of bucks. How about Microsoft? It was at 159 and change late last week. It's 158.72 now, so no new high at this point on Microsoft. Scott, the big tech companies, and I'm thinking particularly of Apple and Microsoft and Alphabet and Amazon, are they going to keep on going up the way they did last year?
Yes, I believe they will, Stuart. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is because money managers, mutual funds, and a lot of investment companies own these stocks. And so therefore, as money flows into the market, they have to buy these stocks to fill out some of those orders. Secondarily, and probably most importantly, is fundamentally these companies are clicking on all cylinders. I mean, you mentioned a couple of the names already, and you could take your pick. I mean, think about how much Apple is part of our lives these days. Certainly Amazon, certainly Microsoft, especially in the business community. These are companies that are integrated so explicitly into the U.S. economy and even the global economy. We see that in the free cash flow numbers that they post quarter after quarter. That's why you should own them.
In the interest of full disclosure, hold on a second, sir. Full disclosure here. Everybody knows, and I've said every time I'm on the air, that yes, I own a thin sliver of Microsoft. I have to tell you that I sold a little bit more than half of my Microsoft late last week. I got out at 159. Okay, now. Was that a foolish move, Susan?
Well, yeah, I think you've done very well over the past, decade or so holding Microsoft. It's got to be, I think, the stock of the decade, definitely the stock of last year as well. So combined valuation with Apple and Microsoft is over $2 trillion. Not bad, but there are more trends to propel these stocks higher this year. For instance, cloud computing continues to grow and become everyday part of our lives, especially with the Internet of Things and your fridge being connected to your Wi-Fi and everything else. Also, 5G will become a reality later on this year. So there's a lot more trends that might push these stocks even higher from here.
So you're saying it was a foolish move, Stuart. You should never have gotten out at 159, as I did.
Actually, my question would be, what did you use that money to do?
Oh, I mean cash.
Buy us something.
Cash.
Well, yeah, I put it into cash late last week. I haven't decided where it's going to go. But wait a second, Scott. I sold the Microsoft that was in my rollover IRA. So you don't pay any capital gains tax on a rollover IRA sale, and I've still got the money in cash, and I can go back in whenever I please. Was it so foolish?
No, I think it was great. I mean, until Elizabeth Warren gets a hold of your rollover IRA, Stuart, you're in good shape because she probably would find a way to tax you on that. But Susan's right. You know, having the cash on hand, taking profits, you know, we're money managers, is never a bad thing. What I would tell you to do is keep that cash ready for a next big pullback or a stock maybe that pulls back that you like and jump in on it.
Precisely right. That's exactly what I intend to do, and I'll tell everybody what I do with the money. All right. Tesla, on January the 1st, that will be yesterday, the company lost that tax credit that had effectively lowered the price of its vehicles. But it's not hurting the stock, Scott. The stock's up $9, 427 Tesla.
Yeah, been a wild ride on Tesla. I mean, after the truck debut and the window smashing event, which I still think was rigged, I think that was on purpose. Tesla's still rolling on all cylinders here, firing on all cylinders, rolling on all wheels. So to me, Tesla's one that was a heavily shorted stock, a lot of disbelievers, a lot of haters on Elon Musk. But the guy can get it done, and he can certainly put on a show, and he puts out good cars when they work the way they're supposed to work.
It's a winner.
Well, okay, so the tax rebate was $7,500. That's essentially what you would get back for buying an electric vehicle like Tesla. So that's gone now as of yesterday. But they're turning to China. You know, China's still offering subsidies and tax rebates as well. You get 20% off your vehicles in a discount, according to a lot of reports. And they just broke ground on a factory that they just started basically building 10 months ago. I mean, that is incredible timelines for someone like Tesla and Elon Musk.
And look at this on your screens right now. That's 3,247.93 on the S&P. That is a new all-time record high for that indicator. Next one, Netflix. This is astonishing. They outproduced every other studio. So how many films did they make last year?
60 English language films last year, including Oscar contenders, The Irishman, also The Marriage Story that you're seeing clips on your screen of. But they won an Oscar. That has eluded them, even though they have garnered the most Golden Globe nominations of anybody this year. Maybe The Irishman, Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro might get them the statue. But look, they've been spending a lot of money as well. They make 2 to 3 times the amount of movies that average studios make. They've been spending $15 billion on content last year. That's a lot of debt that has rolled up, and there's a lot of competition in streaming. We had Disney TV Plus launching this year, Apple TV as well, Peacock, HBO Max this year in 2020. Will they lose subscribers? A lot of analysts say yes. Will that justify the amount of money that they're spending to make these movies? That would be up to how many new subscribers they get. Okay,
on your screens, the NASDAQ, look at the bottom line there. That is a new all-time high. We're breaking records across the board this morning. This is a rally this Thursday morning, first trading day of 2020. What a story. NASDAQ's now above 9,000. Check the big board completely. We're up 150 points as expected for the Dow Industrials, 141 to be precise, 28,677. That's your Dow right now. Airbus. That's a European operation. They've become the world's largest plane maker. First time they've been in that position since 2011. They delivered 863 aircraft last year. Of course, Boeing is beset with these MAX jet problems. That really hurt Boeing over the year, but Airbus surges ahead of them in terms of overall production. HSBC used to be called the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. Got a lot of their branches in Hong Kong vandalized by protesters over the new year. Hong Kong accounts for about half of its bank's profits. No impact on the stock. Still at 39 bucks a share, actually up 6 cents this morning. Here's the indicator we often turn to for the state of the economy. The 10-year Treasury yield, 1.87%. That is actually down a little from where it was just before Christmas. The price of gold, I've not checked this in a while, $15.32. So gold's been going up recently. $15.32.
They had their best year in 2019 since 2010 because of inflationary concerns with all that money, all that stock market gains that you're seeing around the world.
But we don't have any inflation.
No, we don't. That is true.
Gold still goes up. Oil, I think, starts out the 2020s at $61 a barrel. There you have it, virtually unchanged. One economist had some rather harsh words for Bitcoin. How harsh?
Well, Bank of America says Bitcoin is basically a pyramid scheme, which means everyone gets paid, but there's no money to be made, if that makes sense. Eventually, it will run out. So I would disagree, because Bitcoin is a new technology. It's blockchain technology, which is hard to understand for the average folk, because you're mining. It basically adds, like for me to explain this on television is going to be very difficult, but you add each chain by adding information and data mining, which is too complicated to explain in less than 20 seconds. But Bitcoin has also been a safe haven play for a lot of those that want to diversify. Not safety, I should say, diversity play is when you don't know what governments are doing, you know, whether or not you agree with the central bank moves and negative interest rates.
Well, Scott Martin, are you a Bitcoin kind of guy?
Well, after Susan's explanation, which I thought was pretty good, Susan, for under 20 seconds, I may be. Now, here's the thing, though, Stuart. I kind of agree, though, with the premise from Bank of America, because it can definitely turn out to be, let's say, a bitty situation if nobody wants Bitcoin. And that's the problem I have with it, is that it seems very demand-driven. It's not a fiat currency. It's backed by some of those weird things that Susan mentioned, and it's still not usable. I mean, you can't go to, like, the pizza parlor, the airport, and use it. So to me, if you're looking for an alternative as an investor, stick with GLD, gold.
Okay. I wonder if the Domino's Pizza would take Bitcoin, because on New Year's Eve, right around Times Square, jammed with people, Domino's was charging $30 for a pizza for those people jammed into Times Square. Well, and the mayor of New York, of course, ranting against this nasty chain of capitalists and saying they exploited people. What do you got?
Well, he got a lot of backlash on Twitter as well, because, you know, Mayor de Blasio is not that popular in New York City. So those on Twitter once said, this is coming from a guy who eats pizza with a knife and fork, please. So this just came from one. So there's one store, one Domino's Pizza on 40th Street and 7th Avenue, and they were selling pizzas for just around $30 a piece. That's almost twice what they normally charge for cheese pizza, $14. And they sold around 50 pizzas by 6 p.m. Now, if you go by the slice, we did the calculations, that would make this pizza, or this pie, worth around $32. So were they really price gouging when it's basically supply and demand? And we're in a free market system.
Look, if you go at most places in New York City, you will pay $4 for a slice of pizza. There are 8 slices of pizza in a pie, which means $32 for your pie, slice by slice.
Right.
The Domino's was charging $30 in Times Square. Do you have anything to add to this, Scott Martin?
Well, you know, I used to be a fan of Domino's, Stuart. I eat a lot of Pizza Hut nowadays, so I think Domino's should be paying people $30 to maybe eat their pizza.
Oh.
Okay, well, hold on a second. I've got to do this. Correction on Bitcoin. Susan, what do we got here?
So it was LendingTree's chief economist that said that Bitcoin is a pyramid scheme, not Bank of America. In fact, Bank of America called it the investment of the decade. So there are diverse views on whether or not you should be buying into Bitcoin.
It's one way or the other. There you go.
It's one way or the other. Well said there, young man. Thank you. Scott, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.